Now we're talking about weaving. We're going to call this the terror weave, right? The terror weave, okay, after our ancestor, our legend, the Black Terror, Bill Richmond. Again, I say it in all of our head movement videos, but Bill Richmond was the one that brought head movement to the sport of boxing, okay? One of our African-American ancestors who was enslaved, who obtained his freedom back in the 1700s, late 1700s, early 1800s, went over to England, beat those boys up, and taught them how to move their head, okay? Phenomenal brother. Okay, anyway, so we're going to talk about head movement here, and specifically weaving. Now, I like to break this up. Typically, if you go to a boxing class, that's what I say, African martial arts, we utilize boxing, right? We utilize things from boxing, because boxing really is African, okay? All right, first of all, okay? So we do utilize a lot of similar concepts, principles, from boxing, because boxing is African, but really it's important to understand the difference between bobbing and weaving, right? Bobbing is essentially this ducking motion, ducking, dipping, right? This kind of motion here. I don't have to weave every time I bob, right? Every time I duck down, I don't have to necessarily weave, which is cutting across or underneath, okay? So it's important to know the distinction between those two things, because realistically what you're going to do and how you're going to apply this, you're not going to it's not going to be a cookie cutter where, okay, this is a slip, this is a bob and weave, right? That's typically what you're going to get if you go to most rudimentary, kind of boxing gyms, right? They'll teach you a slip, they'll teach you a bob and weave or a roll. But we want you guys to understand the concepts and principles behind the technique. So what I want you to be able to do is, I want you to be able to slip and then weave underneath without bobbing, right? You don't necessarily have to bob. Or if you do bob, I can duck, go down, and then I can weave to my right or I can weave to my left. It just depends on which way I want to weave. But I want you to be able to weave off of anything that you do, not just off of bobbing, not just off of ducking, but I need you to also be able to weave off of a slip, right? If you slip, move your head down, move your head out of the way, or whatever you need to do. Anytime you level shift, anytime I dip down, duck down, whatever the case is, however I do it, as a slip, as a duck, bob, whatever I'm doing, or maybe I threw a punch with it, I need you to be able to weave and cut across to the other side, okay? So that's the idea. I just want you to know how to weave, right? Without bobbing, right? Obviously, you can add it to bobbing and ducking and slipping and all that, but weaving is an important concept. So all you're doing is shifting, right? I'm basically shifting my weight because my head's on this side, it's towards my left side. It's my left side, so that means most of my weight's going to be towards my left foot. I can shift and put my weight on my rear foot here, or my front foot rather, but once I go to the right side, my weight definitely is going to be on this right leg. Primarily when you're weaving is primarily done by shifting your weight from one leg to the other leg. So again, for us in African martial art, it is mostly about shifting our weight, moving our weight, driving power from the legs, being rooted in the earth, in the ground, and connected to nature. So a lot of the techniques we're going to do are going to be done with the legs. It looks like it's done with the body, right? We call it head movement, right? Because we're moving our head, but we're actually really just moving our legs and shifting our weight, okay? And our head just is attached to the torso as we're doing that. So we're not actually like, wobbling the head all around or moving the head. I mean, you can add a little bit of head movement with it, but it's primarily done just in the legs and in how you move your torso, okay? So that's the idea in weaving. Now weaving, if you look at the Ginga footwork from Capoeira, right? From Capoeira, the Ginga footwork is here. This is essentially a bob and weave, right? I'm essentially ducking under, weaving to the other side, at least how we do it, okay? And we call this, and we'll get into this later, we call this the Zinga footwork, because that is literally where the term comes from, Ginga, right? Ginga being sway, but Ginga was also how our African ancestor, Queen Nzinga, spelled her name. Now, if you don't know who she is, she was legendary because she fought against the Portuguese who at the time were enslaving, right? Enslaving her people, okay? And she was in West Central Africa, in Angola, okay? Modern day Angola. And she fought using the African martial art Ngolo, which is the predecessor to Capoeira. And they primarily fought by utilizing dodging, dipping, head movement, right? The footwork, the movement, the inverted kicks, some of the acrobatic movements that you see in modern day capoeira originated from Ngolo because it was primarily utilized to dodge and avoid weapons, right? Spears, arrows, swords, things along those lines. You're not blocking those, right? So anyway, so I like to call this footwork the Nzinga. But my point is, back to weaving, when you switch, you're essentially weaving to the other side, okay? You're weaving. That's what this is. This is a weave, right? And look at what I'm doing. I'm shifting my weight from my right leg. It shifts to the left leg. This is weaving, okay? And essentially you're doing this as a neutral stance, right? Weaving from one side to the other, okay? But from our fighting posture, we can do the same thing. Weaving from the left, back to the right, back to the left, back to the right, okay? Here. Now, when I weave, I don't necessarily have to come up, okay? So what I mean by that is that once let's say I slip, I'm going to slip this way, I'm going to weave across, and I'm here. I can stay here as long as I need to. I don't have to come right back up right away. Or I can weave and weave again back to the other side and come back up on this side. So I don't have to necessarily bob, weave, and stand up. I can bob, weave again, maybe weave in again, and then stand up, okay? So you don't have to necessarily do it in the cookie cutter way that you're going to learn in most average kind of boxing classes, okay? So there's more to it than just that. So anyway, so I'm weaving, and I can weave as much or as often as I need to. Get used to striking from here, punching from here. Get used to seeing from here, feeling where your opponent is, feel where the punches are going to be coming from. Get a sense of knowing where things are. Where's his head, right? Okay, as you're weaving, right, where is his head in this process? Can you reach it, okay? Knowing where those things are, knowing where his hands are, all those kind of things are important, okay? So that's essentially what weaving is. Combine this with your slipping, combine this with your ducking, and don't just be in a set pattern in terms of how you do it, okay? Many ways to weave, many ways to duck and move your head, but I just want you to understand the principle, and it mostly has to do with how you shift and move your weight from one leg to the other.
The purpose of our organization is to start right here in Harlem, which has the largest concentration of people of African descent that exists anywhere on this earth. There are more Africans here in Harlem than exist in any city on the African continent, because that's what you and I are, Africans.